For some reason, I just realized that I've chosen several examples from young adult literature. And I think that's because often characters in young adult literature are so well done and they really resonate and they stick with us. So the next example is a really good, straightforward third person characterization of a character we come to care deeply about in a book that is full of characters about whom we care deeply. This one, again, is just a masterclass in writing. It's Charlotte's Web by E.B. White. This whole thing I'm going to read to you is a characterization, and this is just a couple pages into the book, so we're getting to know Fern for the first time. Fern couldn't eat until her pig had had a drink of milk. Mrs. Arable found a baby's nursing bottle and a rubber nipple. She poured warm milk into the bottle and handed it to Fern. A minute later, Fern was seated on the floor in the corner of the kitchen with her infant between her knees, teaching it to suck from the bottle. The school bus honked from the road. The children ran out to the road and climbed into the bus. Fern took no notice of the others. She just sat and stared out of the window, thinking what a blissful world it was, and how lucky she was to have entire charge of a pig. By the time the bus reached school, Fern had named her pet, selecting the most beautiful name she could think of. "Its name is Wilbur," she whispered to herself. So the whole thing is interiority, and we're really getting into the way Fern thinks about the world, and we like the way she thinks about the world. She's kind and she cares, and she's there's a wit about her, and that funny thing at the end, the most beautiful name in the world, um, and so I think interiority is such a great way. Yeah, I think often we think characterization is only when we're describing somebody else, but it can be just being in that character's mind because we're getting to know them. What what Fern wants, what she longs for, is to take care of this pig, and ultimately she wants to save it from being slaughtered. Um, if you've not read the book, sorry, sort of spoiler, but that's the kind of character we need to create, and again, somebody we care about, or somebody that boggles our mind by the way they act in ways that offend us. And one way to do that is via interiority, getting into their mind and the way that their mind works. Now, here's a very different characterization. This one is done mostly through dialogue and the action that happens between lines of dialogue, which makes for a very active yet subtle form of characterization. And I've had you look at this before when we were talking about dialect, but now we're looking at it as a form of characterization because the color purple is, you can use it to look at anything because it's just such a master class in writing. Please read it. This is from when Celie is first getting to know Shug Avery. And this book takes place in the early 1900s up to the 1940s, I think. And it's the story of Celie, who is basically sold into marriage with this really mean man, abusive man. And much of the novel is about the abuse she suffers and her desire to learn, to get an education, um, and just her strength in surviving it all. Um, and one of the things is that her husband, Mister, is having an affair with this singer named Shug Avery, who's an alcoholic, and is, at this point she's come to live with him, and so Celie is actually having to take care of her husband's mistress, but she doesn't care because she's glad he has somebody else, so she doesn't have to put up with him. And so we'll just look at this. "What you staring at?" she asked, hateful. She weak as a kitten, but her mouth just pat with claws. "You never seen a naked woman before?" "No, ma'am," I said, "I never did." She say, "Well, take a good look, even if I is just a bag of bones now." She have the nerve to put one hand on her naked hip and bat her eyes at me. Then she suck her teeth and roll her eyes at the ceiling while I wash her. I wash her body. It feel like I'm praying. My hands tremble and my breath short. She say, "You ever have any kids?" I say, yes, ma'am. She say, how many? And don't you yes, ma'am, me. I ain't that old. I say, two. She asks me where they is. I say, I don't know. She look at me funny. My kids with their grandma, she say. She could stand the kids. I had to go. You miss 'em? I asked. No, she say. I don't miss nothing. So, Celie and Shug are being characterized here because we're getting into both of their minds here, and we're seeing Shug through Celie's point of view. I want to focus on the way Shug is being characterized here. First, first bit of characterization is in that first line, hateful. She weak as a kitten, but her mouth just pat with claws. So right away we're getting this defining trait about her that comes up again and again, always. She's defiant, and she's strong, she's complex. Later on, she's revealed to be, very loving and very empathetic and caring. At this point, though, she's just not letting her guard down, and that's very typical of Shug. On down, she had the nerve to put one hand on her naked hip and bat her eyes at me. Then she suck her teeth and roll her eyes at the ceiling. So here's a bit of comedy in that Shug is almost playing Celie for a fool. She's being condescending. It's a streak of meanness that she has in her. So again, that complexity that we're getting at. On down, don't you yes ma'am me, I ain't that old. Vanity, defiance. And then at the end, I don't miss nothing. She's not about to reveal her vulnerable side in that she does miss her children. We come to see later that one of the things about her that's really defined her is that her father has disowned her, and she really misses her parents too. So she's a person that longs for acceptance, but she's never going to reveal that. This is in a scene from a beloved novel populated by a hugely memorable cast of characters, and we're meeting two of the most memorable ones. Throughout the novel, each of the characters' essential traits are being revealed in very natural ways in scenes throughout the book, just like this, because characterization has been woven throughout the scene and the novel, and it's always consistent and complex. So, in conclusion, I have never forgotten Scout Finch, not because she's a little girl with short brown hair wearing overalls, but because she refuses to wear dresses and can beat up any boy who crosses her. She's endearing to me because by the end of the book, she's learned to put aside her judgment and accept people who are different from her. I love Ponyboy in The Outsiders because he wants to be the best person he can be in a violent world, because he loves Robert Frost and reads Gone with the Wind, not because of the way he looks. I'll always cherish my time with Celie because she's strong and defiant and has such a strong desire for learning, because she longs to improve herself, to be something more. And with Shug because she's defiant and vulnerable, all in the same breath. They're complex and real, with joy and sorrow and goodness and faults all rolled into one. Those are the kinds of things that make characters rise up singing from the page. To properly characterize, we must think about the ways we really describe people. Yes, we sometimes zoom in on their looks, but often we go far past that. If someone asks me about a real person named Loretta, I might start off by saying she's very pretty, black hair, in her 30s. She has these bright green eyes, but immediately, if they've not recognized her by now, I will put something about her personality in. She's smart, I'll say. And then I'll get more specific. She kind of keeps to herself, but she's not unfriendly. You see how I'm honing in on who she really is and going beyond the physical, which is our first inclination to describe. That's the way we talk in real life. But fiction has to be more revealing. It has to be more intriguing and eloquent. So in fiction, it is pumped up a notch. That's why Loretta, a character in my novel, Eli the Good, is described this way. Her eyes were green and clever, alert to everything happening around her. At the same time, there was a distance about my mother that was most noticeable in her eyes, A mystery there kept everyone, even me, especially me, from getting too close. She was only 33 years old that summer, and her beauty was in full bloom, a kind of peach tint that overtook her face and caused her to glow from within. People stopped talking when she dashed by on the street. She always looked as if she had somewhere important to go. So we have to think about all the things that make people fascinating. Their quirks, their body language, their histories, their beliefs. Then we articulate all that on the page, giving the most important parts when we first meet them, but then going on to weave even more facets throughout the rest of the text. Tell us their deepest secrets, which does not necessarily have to be that they murdered someone years ago, or that they're planning to run away, or that they know where $1 million are hidden. It doesn't have to be some explosive secret. In fact, what is sometimes more interesting are the secrets that we all have: fears, doubts, hopes, what we pine for, what we worry about, our vulnerabilities and strengths, and everything in between. What makes us human beings, or if you're writing something like Charlotte's Web, what makes those characters resonate with human beings. Above all, to do good characterization, you have to give us characters that we'll carry with us after meeting them. Give us people we'll remember as if they were real. The way you do that is by keenly observing real people, taking 2 or 3 people and combining them into one character, adding a whole layer of fiction to that, the way I had you do in your first major writing prompt, which I hope you thought was a good exercise, because I was really excited about that one. The books that have meant so much to me are the ones populated by characters like that. Characters that have an essential trait but are also complex and go beyond that essential trait. That complexity radiates out from that essential trait. Characters who resonate because they epitomize our own hopes and struggles and stories, what we like about ourselves or what we hate about ourselves. That's the great challenge laying before any serious writer, to create characters that give life to characters who will reveal more about our own selves. So, I look forward to any questions you have for me to expand on characterization. Please don't hesitate to ask me anything. I really want to talk to you as much as I can in the comments section, and for us to have a real conversation about these things. So please do that, and I'll see you there.